Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I'm sure that none of us expected that result going in. We knew Israel Adesanya, had reached the cusp of his career, probably had achieved all of the accolades, the greatness, had reached the highest peaks he was going to in his mixed martial arts career. The changing of the guard that we had tonight was really, really rough to watch. Watching a fighter who's been so successful for so long hit that decline and regression in their career is never good to watch, especially in this sport because there's no soft landings at all. And we continue to see that, the era of Usman, Adesanya, Volk just reigning. It's all over now. And tonight we saw that in full effect. Israel Adesanya gets finished off the start of the second round by Imavov. Now let's look at the fight. He was doing quite well, I thought, in the first round. Looked a little bit out of character, was throwing a lot of volume. He just doesn't have that same presence in the octagon anymore. Like, once someone's figured out that puzzle of Israel, and we've seen multiple people do it now in the UFC, it just sort of took away that mystique, and that combined with the age, and like I said, the rest of the competition catching up, he just doesn't have that same dominance anymore. And, tonight was the first time we saw someone put him away clean on the feet. Like, Imavov hit him with that pull two, massive right hook as Adesanya was trying to jab with him. And it just shows you Adesanya has a great chin because he wasn't out cold. Like, the follow-up shot landed clean too. Unfortunately, that was it for Israel. Imavov, biggest win of his career at only 28 years old. It was one of those situations, I think, for the UFC matchmakers where, it was like, what have we got with Imavov here? They knew Adesanya had probably achieved, like I said, all of the accolades he was going to in his career. But it was just such a crossroads matchup. And what we saw, like I said, it's just another example of, these heroes, these fighters who have been on the top for so long, start to break down, start to age, and the results that come along with that are usually really hard to watch. Like, who would have thought that Imavov sleeps Adesanya? Like, this was the cleanest finish Adesanya suffered, and it was at the hands of that next generation fighter, like we said. Coming into this matchup, we spoke about Imavov being that next generational talent, and I thought he'd really have to match up the wrestling. If they went strike for strike with each other, I thought Adesanya had him covered there, but it just shows you the regression in his game, added with the evolution of these middleweight striking. Like, Imavov is very well trained, very, very slick on the feet, and just the difference in power tonight was evident. Like, Adesanya would land clean. It just didn't really phase Imavov. And when Imavov landed, the fight was over in a matter of seconds. So let me know what you guys think about Adesanya and what he does here. Do you think he retires? Because it's clear to see, he's lost 4 of his last 5 now. Like, he just can't hang at this elite level anymore. It's so nuts to say that after, like I said, how dominant he was as a champion. Was the most active champion in UFC history, racked up all these defenses, and now it just is clear that he doesn't belong at the top of that division anymore. So it's a tough pill to swallow for Izzy, who, the coaches himself even spoke about how revitalized he was coming into this training camp. There can be no excuses. There was no time off. He came into this training camp fit after the Duplessis fight. And I think, obviously, the big storyline coming out of this fight is going to be Israel and how he's aged and, the fall from grace. But Imavov needs to be celebrated here because he is putting together momentum. And not only that, he's getting very confident in his abilities, which is a scary, scary thing to see with how much potential he has, because the skills are all there. For Imavov, I think it's just more of that mental, putting it all together. And, with his new team now, new coaches, it looks like they created an absolute savage. For his confidence to, strike with Izzy on the feet, go jab for jab with him and land that overhand, he obviously trusted his power And I'm sure there'll be a lot of criticism potentially over this Imavov win. Israel is over the hill regardless, but this is a matchup. Like I said, it was so crossroads. Young guy coming up and the old veteran who was such a decorated talent in his day. And it was just a passing of the guard. So Imavov got the opportunity, took it with both hands. I cannot wait to see where he moves next, because I'd love to see him in there in a title shot. I know Chimaev is got next, but yeah, Imavov is really, really special talent, I think. I'd love to see the Sean Strickland rematch. I think he's a much different fighter since when they first fought. And on the other side, Izzy, if he's not going to hang him up, just give him some celebrity fights. Not celebrity fights, but you know what I mean? Like an old legend fight, a fight that's not as cutthroat in this young guy trying to come up and steal his position. But that is the sport. And if he's just hanging around to have fun, there's a lot of damage that comes along with that. So he's in a tough position of evaluating where he goes next. But these are the polar contrasts in MMA, rising up, attaining so much glory. There has to be another side of the coin. And Father Time, like we know, beats everyone, gets to everyone in the end. So there are people who can defy that and keep that train rolling, but eventually the next wave of talent will always catch up. So yeah, that's what we saw tonight. And like I said, Imavov, right place, right time, gave himself an opportunity like this. And it's one thing to get the opportunity, but to go out there and have a stellar performance like he did is very, very impressive. So hats off to Imavov. He looked sensational. Great adjustment after the first round. And yeah, I'd love to see where he goes next, like I said. In the co-main event, a little bit of a hype train derailed. MVP was getting no love coming into this matchup, on the odds at least. The real ones knew how much of a tough stylistic fight this was for the Pirate. Regardless of MVP coming up a weight class, you knew this was going to be a striking battle on the feet. And if you're going to strike with MVP, you're going to have some serious puzzles to solve. His style is so interesting, man. It's almost like he's jousting. Like he loves that bounce, feint, 1-2 combo, and he was just landing it all night. Started to add the left hook as some variation as well. MVP does a great job of freezing you with feints. And even if it doesn't look like necessarily from the outside a lot of action is happening, if you're standing in front of him, I guarantee he's just making your mind active. He's not only you're reacting to the feints, but you're just biting on everything. You're so hesitant, which drains your gas tank, man. We saw Shara Bullet really had no answers. He couldn't solve that puzzle. You could tell he wanted to try and land the leg kicks, but after that first right-hand counter, he was a bit defeated, honestly, man. And the variation that MVP was starting to land with those flying knees off that explosion, MVP is very dangerous and clearly gained the respect of Shara early in that fight and pretty much dictated where the ranges were and looked really comfortable in the back foot too. So came out of the fight pretty much unscathed, like took no damage, a few leg kicks here and there, but comes in, great win, takes that steals some hype and can now go back down to 70 with a bit more momentum. I think he sort of cheated the system here a bit. Saw this guy in a high weight class who was, had a lot of hype on him, sees the stylistic possibility for the win. If they're going to strike, who's going to beat MVP on the feet? Like, it's one of those situations like we spoke about going in. You're not going to be able to replicate this. You're going to feel it for the first time, and you could see Shara was completely out of his depth. Lost in there. So MVP, it wasn't the most exciting performance, but it'll age really, really well, I think. And like I said, back in the winners column, come back down and attack welterweight with some newfound momentum. So yeah, really interested to see MVP moving forward and back in his natural weight class. He's not a 185er. I think when he's down at 170, that's where he's truly, truly maximizing his potential. Sergey Pavlovich is a different fighter after that Aspinall fight. It's clear to see. he's so gun shy now. Like, there was so much waiting around in that fight. For Pavlovich, who had a clear path to victory in the grappling, like, there was nothing coming back from the bottom from Rosenstrike. There was so much waiting around before Pavlovich got to those positions. You know, he landed some good strikes here and there, but this is a different fighter than the buzzsaw we saw coming up. Like, go back and watch that Curtis Blades fight. He has a different presence in there, and that sort of aura and mystique, I think, was really shattered by Tom Aspinall. Like, getting knocked out like that had to have really, really damaged Pavlovich's not only confidence, but ability to go into the fire. And once that's gone, the danger level just comes down. Like, he really, really is a completely different fighter. And don't get me wrong, still very athletic, powerful fighter, but that fire, that will to go in there and hurt your opponent and to eat what's coming and to give your own back, like, that's who he was before that Aspinall fight. And he just doesn't have that in him anymore. So that is a really, really interesting takeaway, because I think that fire was, what was making him so successful. So he's just looking really lukewarm since then. Maybe now getting back in the winner's circle will start to build some confidence to let those hands go, but it's not something you can turn on and off, I think. I think once that's cracked, we've seen it countless times in the past, once that's cracked, you're just not the same anymore, and you cannot manufacture that, like I said. Regardless, he gets a win, and yeah, heavyweight being a very shallow division, I think he can still have a lot of success, but I just don't think that killer instinct is there to really carry him to be a champion. Regardless, it was a pretty exciting card. The Dagestanis went 0-2 tonight, so it wasn't the best result for them out there, but let me know what you guys thought about the card. I thought it was a really, really exciting fight card. Great main event, and I want more main events like this on the fight cards. Former champions, even champions, like fight nights with electric main events that really mean a lot, just do such a good job of capping off a great night of action. If you guys could like, comment, and subscribe, I would really, really appreciate that, and we will chat soon.